Yo, 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 yo. Welcome to another episode of Open for Discussion. I'm your boy, C. Maurice Ball, and y'all know what to do when y'all see the thing scroll across the bottom. Hit subscribe, become part of our community so you don't miss out on any of the amazing interviews that we have coming up. And today, I have an amazing young lady on here today that I'm really excited about. She's an educator. She is an author. She just got her doctorate, so she's rolling with the title of doctorate. She's doing big things out in these streets, and she's changing lives one student at a time. And guess what? We get to hang out with her for a few minutes, and I'm really excited about that. So, y'all know how we do it. Kick that intro. Well,
Oh,
well,
yeah.
well. Hey, we jamming. I am introducing to
That
some.
intro was fire.
Come on. We getting turned up in here. We can make some things happen. I am introducing to some and presenting to others. Dr. Valcine Brown, how are you today?
Oh, I am absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much. How are you, Mr. C. Maurice Ball? What a pleasure it is for me to be here with you today.
And then you go make me feel like I'm about to get some treats or something. Do I get a sticker on the
You know,
wall?
you know I do keep candy. I keep
Uh,
candy.
Hey, so I normally have a funny story as to how I meet my guests. Mostly, most of them come from TikTok. So it's normally some kind of funny way that I've kind of encountered them on my end. To them, is like he's stalking me. So here's what happened. She had posted a video one day, and she was talking about something that I'm very, very interested in, and that I've been partaking in and for a long time. So she had posted a video of her outfit, and then she's like, "Hey, I just got into this thing called Jordans." I was like, "Uh-oh, that you don't want to do that. You don't want to be a part of this
You did
life."
warn me. You
I
did
said,
warn me.
I said, this life right here is not the life that you want to be in. And she was like, yeah, I do want to be in that life. And I was like, nah, you don't want to be in that life. You really don't want to be in that life. And and so it went on, and we kind of just went on. And next thing you know, she's like, I'm only going to limit my shoes to like one pair a month. And that I said, it don't work like that. It does not work
Woo.
like
I blew that
that.
work shoe a month out the door like 2 months after I started it. That was gone.
She got one pair, and then she was doing really, really well.
For two
And
months.
then and then Jordans do what Jordans do. They drop about six different colorways of the shoe that you like. And next thing you know, I looked up, and then she was like, "Oh, I got these three right here." I was like, "Oh, you in now? You in too
Okay,
deep?"
but the caveat, I must have a disclaimer. So I told myself one pair of shoes per month. And that was good for like 2 months because I ended up not getting something on the drop like I was supposed to. So I ended up
Mhm.
having to buy it third party. It was either StockX or Goat. And so it cost me $275. So I bought those. The next month I bought another pair, was around the same price. And then the next month I was able to get something I wanted and it was 130. And I was like, well, that don't seem fair. 275, 275, and now 130, I get one pair. So that's when I decided to change it to a dollar amount. 275 a month. So if I'm able to either just buy them straight out of Nike, or if it's a drop, I'm able to get it the first time, then I might be able to get one or two
But two
pairs.
I try to tell her. For y'all who are in the shoe game, y'all know the deal. Y'all know that you it, you So
And so
we
now
end up
the thing now, and now the thing now is when I'm getting dressed, I'll be like, I don't have the perfect shoe to match this. You can go with all whites or tans or black, but like yesterday I wore an outfit and I didn't have the perfect pair. So I was like, now I know what I need to get.
see, and that's how it starts. Um, and there's a couple of pair. I'm in shoe retirement for this year, at least the first part of the year. Oh
Okay.
well, at least until Easter. Um,
Okay. That's next month.
I know. I'm trying not to have to. I'm trying. I'm trying.
I'm trying.
I'm trying.
Trying.
But so she got in the shoe game. So I just started following her and liking her content. She has some really amazing content that we'll get to later. And so I've seen her and I had said, she jumped in the live. I invited her up on the live and I was just like, hey, I want you to be on my podcast. And surprisingly, she had just did a podcast. So she was like, yeah, let's rock. Let's do this thing. And, and so here we are. We get a chance to sit down and spend some time with Dr. V, and we're going to just have some fun and just talk about life and your life more specifically. So, so you ready to get this party started?
I am ready. I'm always ready.
Oh, okay. So here's my question. Here's one of the questions. In your lineage of family members, where do you fall at in your siblings? Are you the oldest? Are you the youngest? You the middle child?
Well, that's kind of a split dichotomy. I'm the youngest and the oldest.
Okay.
So my mother, of her two children, I'm the youngest. But my father, after they split, he went, got remarried, and had more kids. So I'm the oldest over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
And with my sister, from my mom, she's 13 years older than me. So they also say if your children are more than 8 years apart, it's almost like being an only child. So not only was
yeah,
I technically the youngest, I felt like an only child, which made me very spoiled and selfish.
understandable.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. Because I'm the youngest of three and I'm the only boy. So I totally understand that.
Oh,
And then I was the
yeah.
only one living with my dad. So I totally understand that. So a
Mhm.
13-year age gap,
Mhm.
she was grown doing grown folks stuff
Yeah.
by the time you hit middle school. So she was out doing her thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Do y'all have did y'all have a close relationship? Was it like, hey, big sister, come and swoop me up and we hang out a little bit, or did that form later?
Well, we weren't really close because of the age gap. And then there were some times I think my mother just not being aware of the consequences. My sister ended up being in some ways resentful of me. So if
Hmm.
my sister might ask to take the car at 16, 17, you can go, but you have to take Sini with you. That's my nickname, Sini. So no 17-year-old want to have to take their little 3 and 4-year-old with them. And so she did it, which was cool because we would end up, it was going to family members' house. So I ended up at my cousin's house. And so over there, I was the star of the show. Let me tell you, I was the star. So I got all the attention. So that was a little rough because we didn't have anything in common. And but then once we were both adults and her kids, of course, because we're 13 years apart, our kids are 13 years apart. So that was that difference there. But I was so happy when my nieces and nephews came along. So I got to spoil them to
Hmm.
pieces. And then when I started having my children, her kids were 13 years older. So it was fun for them to come and hang out and help me take care of the kids. So
So you became the rich auntie.
yes, yes. I'm the rich auntie. And my sister has passed now, but with her grandchildren, which are my great nieces and nephews, I send gifts for birthdays. I've fallen off the last couple of years, but I had everybody's birthday and I would just send them a gift and they'd be getting stuff. So my one of my grandnephews, he let me know, as kids will, straight up, that I fell off. He goes, well, when you gonna send us our birthday gifts again? I was like,
you,
okay, okay, you made me aware that I have been slipping. Thank you.
you started something, got them
I
depending on it,
started
and then
something.
and
Yeah.
then pulled back.
They know
Oh yeah.
because they noticed. Like, we ain't got no birthday gifts in a minute. I was like, I got busy.
So growing up, technically as the only child,
Hmm.
um, and were you always an academic? Were you always like around eighth grade? What was life around life was like for you around eighth grade? Were you always an academic? Were you always a student? Were you the good kid that didn't do anything, and you know, or you did stuff, and because you were good, all your grades and stuff just kind of overlooked all the other stuff that you were doing?
I was a good girl. I like following the rules. And later on, now as an adult, I've been diagnosed with ADHD and OCD. So I like following the rules. Now, if I don't like a rule, we're going to have a conversation about the rule because my mother always encouraged me. She said, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So if you
Uh-huh.
have something you want to say to me, if you come to me and you're respectful, I will listen and I will hear you out. So my mother had a great dialogue with me in that regards. So I was always a nerdy academic. I loved to read. And this story, it still tickles me pink to this day. In pre-K, learning how to read, I went to Happy Days pre-K. And so when they were teaching me my phonics and we would ride home and I'm sounding out everything. And my mother said, are you gonna sound out everything you see? I said, yes, because I can read now. She said, okay. And my mother always went to the library every 2 weeks faithfully. And then I was like, well, can I check out books now? She said, yes. So she got me my first library card. And so every 2 weeks now, we weren't just going for her, we were going for me too. And I took good care of my books. When I was done, I put them on the corner of the table so I knew which ones I was done with and ready to go back. And that just always maintained, that was always something that I loved. I love reading, writing, and talking about reading and writing. So even through middle school and high school, I never struggled academically except in two classes. I struggled in geometry and I struggled in what was the other class? I can't even remember what the other one. It was some science, chemistry. I struggled in geometry and I struggled in chemistry. And as an adult, having reflected on that, I couldn't figure out why I was so good in everything else, but not that. And it was because they just wanted me to engage in rote memorization. For
Uh-huh.
chemistry, you need to memorize the periodic table. Okay, but are we actually going to use it? And we didn't do enough with it that it was very, very hard for me to just do something for the sake of doing it. I need to um, be pulled in with what I'm doing. And then
Mhm.
with geometry, they wanted me to memorize all the shapes. So I tried to with a good little scholar. My mom got me flashcards and I wrote down the shapes and I wrote it all and I put everything on the back so I could quiz myself. And I just struggled. And later in life, being diagnosed with ADHD, I learned that my ADHD predominantly manifests itself in memory. So
Mm.
asking me just to memorize something for the sake of something that I can't connect it to, I struggle with that. So it was hard for me at the time. I couldn't figure out why
Mm.
those two classes, I just couldn't do it. But now as an adult, I was like, that's why I couldn't do that. So,
That
but
is
other than that,
very
I got A's.
that's very interesting because I'm sitting here thinking about my son, and he was diagnosed with that as well. I think we
Mm,
all got a form of it. My wife and I were talking about that today. But you saying that and trying to connect it to memory, I
mhm,
could see that in him.
mhm,
But the
mhm,
application stuff he thrives in
mhm,
when he has to
mhm,
apply it. Um,
mhm.
so you growing up, you're a scholar, you're a nerd. Were you at that point? Did you have a good relationship with your dad?
No, my dad was absent from my life up until I think the first phone call I got from him. I was 12, and I'm a smart mouth hooligan, and I always speak my piece. Now, the interesting thing is that I had a relationship with his father. So let me go backwards to go forward. So
Okay.
my father was in a steel band from Trinidad, Tobago. So he
Mhm.
was here. They were on tour. He met my mother. They got married. She got pregnant with me. And then he was told he had to go back. He tried to stay here. I don't know what the whole visa situation was like, but he had to go back to Trinidad. And his father had immigrated here and stayed, and he was in New York. So now my grandfather on my father's side, we stayed in touch. We sent
Mhm.
cards and those things, but my father, we never spoke. And I remember, I think I was 12, just somewhere around there. And my mom called, she called me to the room. She goes, "The phone's for you." I said, "Who is it?" She goes, "It's a surprise. Get on the phone." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Hello." And there was this heavy accented voice. I was like, "Who is this?" He goes, "It's your dad." I was like, "You're not my dad. My mother's my mother and my dad." And I handed my mother the phone back and I walked out the room and my mother just looked. And so they talked and then they got off the phone and she was like, "Well, why did you do that?" I was like, "Well, where he been all my life and just call me like, 'Hi, I'm your dad.'" I was like, "No." And I didn't have the language to at 12 to express that what I was feeling, but I just was not having it. And my mother never forced me to engage with him.
Mhm.
If I wanted to talk to him when he called, I could. If I didn't want to, I didn't have to.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you think that affected you any, not having that
Mhm.
relationship?
I do. I I think some of the ways it possibly could have affected me more negatively was um kind of supplanted by the fact that I had a very active grandfather on my mother's side
Mhm.
and my uncles. I was their pride and joy. We had lots of family gatherings, and two of my uncles, we even lived in the same city. One uncle lived 4 blocks away, the other about 8 or 9 blocks. So we would get together regularly to do Sunday night dinners or Sunday morning breakfasts. And so I had that positive male role model.
Okay.
And summers, I spent a lot of summers with my grandparents, my grandmother and my grandfather. And my grandfather was the main adult male figure that I looked up to. So he taught me how I'm supposed to be treated and treasured. But there was still a part of me that felt that absence
Mhm.
of having my actual father, because I had friends who had dads and they'd be like, "Well, daddy this." And I was like, "I don't have nobody to call daddy." And so in some ways it did, and it took me a while as an adult to really recognize and be honest with myself about
Mhm.
that part that I was missing, and then decide what decisions I was going to make regarding that absence. Was I going to look to the ones who were there and determine what I knew to be true for me from them, or was I going to look more to the vacancy? And I chose to look more to my grandfather and look more towards my uncle, especially my grandfather. My grandfather was one of the sweetest, gentlest men you could ever meet. And he reminds me of, the Bible says to be meek. Meek is
Mhm.
meek. It's not this Meek is reserved strength with
Right.
the absence of strength. And the one time I ever saw my grandfather get upset, he wasn't a man who used foul words and he didn't even have to raise his voice. But he said, "No, we are not going to do it that way." And I remember because my grandfather owned an electric business. And so during the summers, I enjoyed going to work with my grandfather. And a particular time, I guess one of the um, men that he was partnering with to work on a particular project, they had disagreements on how they were going to do it. And so my grandmother said, "Come on, Sini, let's get in the car." I was like, "Okay." Got in the car. And I was like, "Well, granddaddy didn't get in the car with me." And I could just see through the window. And then I heard him say, "No, we are not going to do it that way." And the other man just shut down and he was like, "Okay." And that was the only time I ever saw my grandfather get upset. And whenever I went around him the first time, he goes, "Sini, tell me something good." And he
Mm.
wanted to hear that I was doing well in school. He wanted to hear what my plans were. And he just enjoyed celebrating all of my accomplishments with me. So,
How important do you believe that having that role, that male role model or male figure is in life? You're an educator right now, so I'm pretty sure
mhm.
you see both ends of the stick. Um, but how important do you believe that having that male, consistent male role model or affirmation is to a young person?
Oh, it's vital. It's absolutely vital because we toil with some things psychologically that may have us asking questions we're not even aware that we're
Mm,
asking, such as me
mhm,
being, well, why I don't have a daddy? Why I don't have someone to call daddy? And then we look inside, well, what might be wrong with me
mm,
that I don't have my dad around?
mhm,
And having someone that shows you how you should be treated is very vital. A mother role and a father role, because we see ourselves as an extension of our family, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. Whether there are some things that we want to change later on because they're not the best decisions or the healthiest decisions, we have to at first acknowledge what is there and then make decisions about that afterwards. So I think it's absolutely vital. Without something to look at, something to uphold, it leaves a blank space that we have to then fill in all by ourselves.
mhm,
And I even see it in terms of when my children's father and I got divorced, we would sit down and we made a budget together. Okay, this is what we get. How are we going to budget to have fun and things of that and things that and the other? And I see those same things in my children now, where they're like, okay, well, this is how I'm doing my budget. Mom, what do you think about this? Having someone to have those conversations and model expectations does a lot for us
mhm,
in our adulthood. And we can decide whether, I like the way mom did her budget, or she had some things I liked, or some things I maybe want to do a little bit differently. And I think
mhm,
that goes from everything from budgeting to how we communicate in adult relationships, how they see us communicate and even talk about other people when they're not in the room. All those things are modeling. And we can't say, do as I say, not as I do. It's more important that we model those behaviors. And in the absence of modeling, there's a blank space, there's a void.
100% agree.
Yeah.
100% agree with you on everything that you said. I am real big on the example part. What you got to have examples,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
without the examples, we then piecemeal it together through other
Mhm.
broken pieces of examples,
Mhm.
only to come up with a broken image that
Mhm.
we done super glued together, which make it looks like it has the appearance of being right. So I
Mhm.
am I am really a big proponent of having examples.
Mhm.
So now you're rocking and rolling. You're this you're this middle school super sweet nerdy young lady. How were you perceived in school? Like, were you with the pack of were with the other pack of young ladies? Did you do any extracurricular activities? Were you on the chess club? Did you cheer? Did you play volleyball? Were there other things that you could do to engage at a young age?
In middle school, I was in choir all 3 years. I absolutely love to sing. And so that was my get down. In high school, I played hockey.
Really?
I did. I was fortunate that the high school I attended was right down the street from an ice skating rink. So that was my PE class for 4 years. Because when I was in, yeah, no, for 3 years, because when I was in high school, it was only 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And so it was first period. We went to the ice skating rink first. We did our first period ice skating. And then we walked down to the high school and then had the rest of our day. So I played hockey for 3
You
years.
played hockey.
I did. Now, they didn't let us hit and check and fight. So let's say that they taught us how to skate. We weren't doing that. But they taught us how to skate, they taught us how to stop, they taught us how to be fast, and our final was always a hockey match. So they divided the class in half, and then we had a hockey match for us for our final.
Were you a beast?
I did get there. Yes, not the first year. So the first year I'm learning how to skate and I have braces. And so we're going to teach you how to skate backwards and stop. I was like, "Okay." So I'm skating and then you have to do like a plow stop. So you're turning your legs out to
Mhm.
stop. And I fell forward on the face, smacked my face on the ice. I kept my
Ooh.
teeth. So that's okay. But I remember the inside of my lip was bleeding from contact with my braces. So I didn't start off very good, but I was in the fastest heat by the time we made it to the end of the middle of the second year.
So as a young person picking up ice hockey, was the area you in a diverse area? Were you a in a gumbo setting, or were you the minority of minorities?
Well, two different caveats. So where I lived, it was predominantly Black. In Carson,
Okay.
California, it was a very upper echelon Black neighborhood, a lot of successful parents. But for middle school, I was really good at math until geometry. And so I participated in the magnet program. So I got bused to my high school, and there it was a gumbo. There it
Okay.
was people in Harbor City. I went to Nathaniel Narbonne High School. It was a wide range of diversity there. So there I was.
That's that. How do you feel that helped you as you transition? I mean, like being from a predominantly Black neighborhood, transition into a multicultural setting. Um, how do you feel that helped you in your transition into high school? Was it something that you were saying, okay, I like the more diverse side of it. I get a chance to glean from other people. Did you feel, was you accepted? Was you received? What was
I was
the
very much accepted. My I traveled a lot with my family when we were younger. So I always had the opportunity to do a lot of different things. My mother really liked taking me to plays as well as gospel concerts. I saw some of the best Broadway plays at the Pantages Theater. I saw Wiz. I saw Your Arms Too Short to Box with God. So in those environments, I was around a lot of different races and cultures, as well as traveling a lot. I mean, I flew on my first time on an airplane. I was 5 or 6 years old. So I had always been around a lot of diversity in various areas, just not where I lived. So I don't
Mhm.
think I really noticed it so much in high school, but that was because I think really because I was well traveled. It might not have been the same had I not done a lot of things and been a lot of different places where it was a variety of race and culture.
How important do you believe exposure is at a young age?
Oh, I think it's vital. If we consider that the way technology is bringing everybody together,
Mhm.
we live in a global society, and that was not the case when we were younger. Your traveling came from plane and trains and driving places. We didn't have the opportunity to jump on the internet. There was no internet
There was
to
no
be able
internet.
to right to engage with other people. So it's especially vital now if we talk about preparing our students for 21st century skills. They also have to have 21st century cultural awareness.
For sure, for sure. And so you are this hockey playing, choir singing young lady out here
Mhm.
in a diverse school, making waves and doing your thing. Honor roll student, I'm
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
Honor roll student, following the rules.
Yep.
Like all the rules. You
Okay, occasionally I broke rules. Occasionally I broke rules. Occasionally I broke rules. But
okay?
it was very few and far between. Yeah. I was
Like, were you on? Like, did you have a curfew? Did you break the curfew? Did you sneak out to the party? What
I
was
didn't
your?
sneak out to the party. My mother had a lot of gave me a lot of freedom because I
Mm,
wasn't a rule breaker, because I was
right.
making great grades in school, and I spent a lot of time with my mom up until high school. I mean, we had routines within our lives, such as I had braces, I mentioned. So whenever we went to get my braces done, right afterwards, before my mouth starts to hurt, we always went to my favorite Mexican restaurant. And I went to a lot of movies with my mother. So we spent a lot of time together. So I think my mother was very confident in who I was. So she didn't feel the need to have a tight rein on me.
Mm,
Um, I had a curfew. I never broke curfew. If I wanted to stay somewhere longer, my mother's rule was you call and you ask. If I say no, you come home. If I say yes, then you can stay. My mother also knew all my friends. It was different. I think that might be different these days.
for
My mother
sure.
knew who I was, and I was hanging out with people I'd been friends with since first and second grade, because I we moved to that house in Carson when I was 7 years old. So I had the same friend group. I'm going so and so with Shannon and going so and so with Keisha. Okay. Our parents knew each other.
Yeah.
So there wasn't a lot of concern that I might be getting into trouble. She knew who I was with. And my mother always said if somebody's good enough to hang out with, they're good enough to come to the house.
For sure.
So my
Absolutely.
mother knew exactly who I was with. You wasn't taking me out on a date if my mom ain't met you. It wasn't happening.
Oh, mom had put some.
Yeah.
Ooh,
My mother was okay.
mama
My
was a
mother
beast.
was a probation officer. So let me say
Ah,
that part. My mother was a
okay.
probation officer.
Because I was about
So
to ask you what because your starting story sounds so structured. Like
mm,
it's that is amazing to have that structure, that exposure, that diversity, all that stuff growing up, that it just
mhm,
became a part of you. So
mhm,
and it sound like mom laid down the law and you
mhm.
followed the law.
Yeah, my mother was, I was a late in life baby. So my mother was born in 1938. I'm born in 1972. And
Okay,
my mother was a debutante at 16. She had a coming out party. And so my mother went on to school and she got her AA degree, which was practically unheard of in
for
the
sure.
early 50s. So my family valued education, hence probably why my grandfather always asked, tell me something good. And he wanted to hear how great I was doing in school. And so there was definite structure.
That's I
Definite.
mean the it's just an amazing to hear that to an associate's degree back then was
Mhm.
almost an equivalent to a bachelor's,
Yes, especially for a
especially
Black
for
woman.
minorities,
Mhm,
especially for minorities. So the sense that accomplishment was huge.
mhm,
You're a year older than I am, and so we the village part of that, like you said, your mom knew all your friends,
mhm,
and your friends they were over at the house or yours over there. That's just how we was raised, so I can
mhm,
understand that, being able to stay somewhere and
mhm,
hang out, because it was the same rule. My dad had the same rule:
mhm,
if you're gonna be somewhere, just call me and let me know that's where you're gonna be. Don't say you're gonna be somewhere and then turn around and not be where you're gonna
mhm,
be.
mhm.
um, but then again, it wasn't no really way to check, because once we walked outside, it was fair game. We would be all over the place. We rode bikes. We would disappear as long as we was back before those street lights came on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we did the same. I actually had a green machine. I don't even know if you know what that is.
We the
I had
same age. Now, come on. I had a
I had
green
a green
machine with the
machine.
handles, and
Yes.
you could spin
Yes.
out. Yeah. It had a
So
green
it was
machine.
and we hung out outside a lot.
Yes.
If I
Yes.
wasn't skating or riding a bike or my green machine, then we might be in the house. We're playing Barbies, we playing Barbie dolls. So yeah, it was much easier to grow up in our generation, I think.
I think we are. I think we're the best generation. To be honest, we are the
Generation X.
Generation X. We are the bridge. Like we were the we came into the internet. The internet was formed during our generation.
Mhm,
We were the last generation to kind of be the outside generation, so that
mhm,
those 90s, 80s, 90s was like really, really amazing.
mhm.
Um, so you're this model student. You are you got your glamour shots high school pose going on all through high school. Um, you said your mom didn't allow you to date. Did you date in high school?
I did date. I did. I think my first like boyfriend, I think I was 10th grade, 11th grade, 11th grade, I think. Yeah. And she knew who he was.
She checked him out. She's a correction officer, so
Who knows what kind of
she run
background check
she
she
run
was
his
doing?
she run his social security numbers up in this thing. Who his people? We need to make sure.
Mhm.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you graduate 1990, 91?
90.
Okay, 1990, and then you transition into college.
I
Did you
did.
go
I
directly
started,
into college right out of
I
high
did.
school?
I did go directly into college, but I didn't stay to finish my AA. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. At
Okay.
first, I thought I wanted to be a child psychologist. So I'm taking classes, and the very first psychology class we're taking, the professor was observant enough to realize that when they get to talking about child abuse, some people don't have the ability to make it through those tough conversations, those tough lessons. So right
Mhm.
before we were about to go on a 10-minute break, she said, this is the part where a lot of students, they end up dropping out of the class or whatever, and they drop out too late to get their money back. So we need to kind of brief you on some of the things we're going to cover here that may be a bit hard, a bit uncomfortable. And so she was going through this, the click clack slideshow, clack, and it turns
Uh-huh.
click clack. So
Uh-huh.
she went to the slideshow, and sure enough, I left class crying, did not go back. I said, I can't. Yes, I am very empathetic. So looking at images of children that have been abused, I couldn't do it. So I said, okay, I don't want to do that. What do I want? Maybe I'll be a journalism. I like to read, I like to write, I can answer questions. So then I take a journalism class that next semester. And they're like, journalism isn't like what it is today, where you can do most of your stuff, online and post. You got to go out
Right.
there, you got to get the story, you got to be aggressive. And I'm aggressive, but not in that way where I'm all up in folks' business. I was like, well, yeah, I can't be a journalist. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I ended up leaving college because I couldn't find my motivation. And it wasn't until after I'd gotten married, had kids, was a stay at home mom, and I started doing home daycare that I realized I can teach. I'm good at running this home daycare thing. I'm
Mhm.
preparing lessons, not just for my daughter, but for the two other children I'm taking care of. And I'm teaching them their phonics. I knew I didn't want to teach younger kids, but I was like, I'm good at this. And so that was when I returned to school, knowing that I wanted to be an English teacher. And I just sailed through, made the president's list, the national dean's list,
So
finished
so
my
you
PhD with 4.0.
look at savage move right there. So you went from being in school. How did your mom and your granddad kind of make that adjustment? Did you take a gap year? Was it a or a couple of years and
It
then
was a gap century, I'm sorry, a gap decade. It was a
a gap
gap
decade?
decade.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so you graduated at 19, I
So I
mean
graduated
18,
in
17.
1990. I didn't return to school till 2005.
Okay.
So
Okay.
15, well, no, I stayed about a year and a half in college. So I quit in the beginning of 92. So I didn't go into that second semester of what
Okay.
would have been my second year of college. So I took 13 years off.
And then at 13 years, you end up getting married and
I
having
got
children.
married, had 3 children.
Okay.
Two boys
And,
and
and
a
so
girl. My girl is my youngest.
and I see some pictures on Instagram. But so you get married. What
Mhm.
was marriage like for you? Because going back to the example piece, how was you prepared to be a wife,
Mm.
knowing that you came from a single mom, or did you kind of glean from your grandmother and your aunties and things like that?
I don't think I really gave it any thought. Having not, I had my aunt and uncle, they were married. Of course, my grandparents were married. um, I don't think I had really paid enough attention to the dynamics of a marriage to really understand or have an idea what my role was going to be.
Hmm.
And if I had to think about it, having grown up with very strong Black women, um, I think that a part of me and that inner strength that I have makes it very difficult for someone who can't just let me fly. Like my grandmother and my grandfather, they had roles that I can now look back and observe that they just understood and fell into a natural order. My grandfather was the sweetest man, and he was very empathetic. And they owned a couple of apartment complexes. So and then also mentioned that he was an electrician, had his own electrician business, and he wasn't allowed to go and collect the rent because somebody would give great. My grandmother said, somebody give your granddaddy a sob story, and he's like, I'll be back next week. He came back one time with, well, so and so had a sob story. My grandmother said, I'm gonna be collecting the rent from now on, and my grandfather wasn't offended by that. They had their roles, and she was responsible for handling the invoices for all the business because they had a home office, and so sometimes I'd help her and I'd be
Hmm.
stapling stuff and putting things away. So she was the backbone behind the business, making sure parts were ordered, things were invoiced. When the parts came in, she'd hand to him so that he could go and stock his work truck. They just they clicked. They didn't
Hmm.
care so
Hmm.
much about gender roles,
Gender
right?
roles. Hmm.
And so with those things, I thought I could just be me. I'm just going to be all that I have been. And you knew what you was marrying. So notice I did say that's my ex-husband. So
Okay, yeah, yeah. I was gonna get to that. So
yes,
you come in with the impression
that I'm just
that
going to be me.
you're going to be you, and what was the reality when you realized that, oh, marriage ain't what I made it out to be in my head?
Well, for me, the come to Jesus moment was having a conversation about my headstrong nature with my ex-husband at the time. And I said, well, I told you that I wanted X, Y, and Z. And he said, well, I
Mhm.
thought you were going to change your mind. Well, wait a minute. Hold on. Well, why didn't you tell me you thought I was going to change my mind? Because I would have told you I wasn't, and we wouldn't be fighting about it right now. He said,
Uh-huh.
well, what you were saying, it just didn't really seem practical. And I thought you'd figure it out on your own. I was like, well, that sounds like a you problem, because I was upfront and said, this is who I am. These are the things that I want out of life, and these are the things I'm going to pursue. When you didn't say to me, we're not on the same page, I inadvertently took that to mean we were. Now, in therapy later, I learned that I should have followed up. I should have said, I want X, Y, and Z. How do you feel about that? I should have asked that question instead of making
Uh-huh.
the assumption we were on the same page.
Clarify and verify.
Yes. So that
Yes.
that is the that is the for me to learn. That was the lesson I learned. Yes, clearly communicate, but ask those clarifying questions. Is that all right with you? Are we on the same page? Do you have a different vision?
How long did it take for you to realize that it was not the case?
Um, we were married 13 years, I think. And I think just over the course of the last 8 years, when, as he said, everything just had to be my way. Listen, I said I was spoiled. Look, tell the truth and shame the devil. See,
I get it.
I never had to compromise growing up. I didn't conversations my children had to have, I never had. So, hey, such and such movie, both these movies came out. What are we going to see? Let's vote. The voting wins. I never had that. My mother said, "Do you want to see X, Y, or Z?" I'd say X. We went to X. If I wasn't being given a choice, my mother would just say, "Hey, get in the car. We're going to see blah, blah, blah." So whenever I was given a choice, in my mind, I always got what I wanted. See, right.
I get it.
Yeah. And now, but this is my adult mind looking back and saying, oh, you don't always get what you want. You thought you did, but there were times where you weren't given a choice, but you didn't think about that, right? Because we didn't have, my mother and I didn't have conversations about either I was given a choice and I got what I wanted, or she just said, we're going to go such and such. And learning as an adult, that's a hard curve. That curve is hard. That curve is hard, which is why Jesus.
That curve is a sharp turn that slides you right out the back of the pickup truck, and you just roll down the hill. I get it.
It's hard.
I can relate.
And so when we would have discussions about what we're going to do or whatever, I'm also very intellectual. I'm not an emotionally driven person. And so once I've gathered my facts and I've determined what is the best route to go, and you say that, well, I don't like that idea. Okay, well, why not? And you don't have some supporting evidence. You don't like it. Guess what we doing? What I said we doing. But it makes it very contentious. Like, I could think of a serious issue. Okay, so my mom had passed away, and she left me a lot of insurance money. So my sister and I divided it. We put money away for the kids, and then I had a pot that was mine. So I went to my uncle and I said, because at this time my aunt had passed away a few years before, and they both had great life insurance, so he knew how to invest. So I went to him. I said, "Hey, I've never had this much money before. What should I do? What should I be doing with it?" And so he gave me some plans. I said, "Okay." Now, that's my uncle. He's been in my shoes. He understands investment. I didn't. So I went to my ex-husband at the time. I was like, "Hey, I had a conversation with Uncle Larry, and he says blah, 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 blah." And my ex-husband said, "Well, why you ask your uncle and not me?" I was like, "Because he's been in these shoes. He's older. He knows how to invest. I've never had this much money. I'm going to someone who has walked in these shoes. Well, I don't really like that plan." Okay, well, what do you think? And he didn't have anything to say. He was more offended that I asked my uncle. Now, that to me sounds like you need to get out your feelings and you need to be able to heed somebody's wisdom. And I don't like. So that was contentious right there. And so I said, "Well, my mama didn't leave this money to you. She left it to me. I'm gonna do what I want." I know it's rough. It's rough. I probably should have put a little sugar and honey in that before I said it.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. But it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I said, "Okay, well, I'm gonna go do this." So yeah. And so there were things like that where he would feel like, you always get what you want. Yeah. You thought that was gonna change?
Say, I'm the baby.
Right.
I get it. I get it. I got married, and I'm like you. Sometimes I had an option, sometimes I didn't. But most of the time it was a yes. The majority of the time it was a yes. And so getting married to hear no, I was like, what's this crazy foolishness?
What? Who you talking to? Don't cuss at me like that.
No. Girl, you better check my resume. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, yeah, that was that curve was very, very
It's
difficult.
hard.
And like you, I learned it the hard way. Eventually, I got on board because we got 22 years in this thing. So
Mhm. What a
um,
blessing. What a blessing.
you realize that okay, he not he not built
Not on
for
board with the program.
it,
He thought the channel was going to change.
and did he? I mean, because I mean, I'm gonna tell you just some of the things it is kind of harsh dealing with a very driven, uh,
Mhm.
dominant type woman. I'm
Mhm.
married to one. So I know how it is. And she's the youngest of three and she's the only girl. So
Oh, wow.
I know how to the duty, it's very difficult and a man has to be really secure in his to be able to deal with women like y'all built. I want to call y'all alpha women because that's so
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
whatever. But so you married and 13 years in, you got three amazing children.
Mhm.
How was becoming a mom for you in a situation where I mean, you have an amazing mom, so an amazing example. Was just rolling into motherhood easy for you? Was it easier than being married?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I love my children more than any other human that's ever walked this planet. And it is them who have taught me to not be selfish. And it's amazing that I can be selfless with them, but not anyone else. And even to this day, where my youngest is 25, when she needs me, everything drops.
Hmm.
And having them, once we divorce, life changes, right? But you're still putting them as my priority, spending time with them and getting into their hobbies. And my son he did track. He was a thrower. So he threw shot put and disc. I went to every track meet. He goes off to college. I'm at every track meet. It's my job to be your biggest fan
For
because
sure.
you only get one mother. And if I don't do my job right, right?
Yeah.
So motherhood was easy. It was it was and continues to be one of the easiest things I've ever done.
So you go back. So in that process, how old were your children when you decided that you wanted to get back into school?
Oh, they were fine with it. And at this point, we're divorced, and and ended up being one of the issues over which we divorced, me going to school. And there were times where he's supposed to get the kids at 5:30, but my class starts at 5. So I said, well, the kids are just going to go to school with me. Just come by and pick them up from school.
Hmm.
And so they went to class with me. They sat in the back. And my teachers always said, you have the most well-behaved children I have ever met. My daughter was only 5. She's sitting in the back. She's coloring and doing her stuff. And so they just adjusted.
Mm.
We built our weekend times. We parented 1 week on and 1 week off. So I had them Sunday to Sunday, then the next week he had them Sunday to Sunday, so they would be with me during the week as well as through the weekend. So we made the most of our weekends together. We would plan what we were going to do. We plan around homework. Okay, well, mama has to do X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna get up in the morning and I'm gonna do this. So if you get up, just don't be loud so I can get this done. And then we're gonna go out and we're gonna have our fun time. And what are we doing
Mm.
today? You guys get to decide. Go figure it out. So we had a lot of great communication between my children and I, and they just sailed right through it. And my son, one of my sons, my middle child, youngest son, he said, I watched everything you have set your mind to do, you have accomplished.
Wow.
You just did it. It wasn't even a failure for you, was never an option. He said, I've watched you go to college and get your bachelor's. Then I went back to school, got a master's, got a second master's, and now my PhD. So he said, you make a plan and you just do it.
I you yeah, you are a a special breed. Like,
I'm a
yeah,
nerd.
there are few. Well, I'll say this: the way that you move is a how I can't even figure the word of the women of how women moved in that space. Like my wife is moved like you. Shauna moved like you know what I mean. Like all like the people they had like y'all get it locked in. What's it in y'all brain? And
This is good
it's
as done.
oh, it is
Mhm,
going to get accomplished. And
mhm,
it's like no matter
mhm.
what the obstacles are, no matter what the setbacks or the hurdles or the challenges,
Absolutely.
we just roll with the punches and we make it work.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We carry babies to class,
Mhm.
we carry babies to work.
Yep.
I mean, like this really impressive. And so in the interim, you ran a daycare. What was your other job before you got into teaching? What
I was at home. I was in oh, you mean after the divorce?
after the divorce,
Oh, I
like
worked 3 part-time jobs. I worked one of the jobs was Express, one was working at Jack in the Box, the night shift, and then I also was a library clerk at a continuation school. So I had 3 part-time jobs while going to school.
wow.
Mhm. And
And and,
parenting.
and that was for your bachelor's.
That was for my bachelor's.
Then did you when you graduated, did you go into teaching?
Yes. So the
Okay.
minute I finished with my bachelor's, I went immediately into my teaching credential program. So I was able to substitute teach then during that time because it was the perfect hours. I can go substitute teach during the day, do my
Mhm.
credentialing classes in the evening. And then once I finished my credential and I did the 1 year track, I was like, let's just get it done and over with. I'm not trying to milk this thing out for 2 years. Then I got hired as a teacher right away.
And so you at what grade did you start off teaching?
It's always been high school. My
Okay.
first year of teaching was ninth and 10th grade. And over the years, I've taught all 4 levels 9, 10, 11, 12. I've taught both CP and honors. I've taught AP Lit, AP Lang, done support for our dual enrollment English 1A and 1B classes. I teach now, still teach Avid. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you being a educator, being in the school system, what is one of the major things that you see right now that's hindering young people in
Mm.
education?
I think reading skills. A lot of our poor little babies have reading skills that are below the expectation. And it makes it difficult for us to really critically analyze things in class the way we need to. And the way the standards are written and its expectation for you to really go beyond just reading comprehension and regurgitation, you have to analyze things and you have to get at author's purpose and you have to be able to look at the rhetorical moves that they're making. They're just I see a lot of disinterest in my CP students, not so much in my AP students, but in my CP students, they really don't want to engage and do that heavy lifting of analysis.
Mm. Do
And it's
you
even harder when we do have to read some of the older documents. I have a lot of leeway within my school district. As long as we're teaching the standards, I'm allowed to choose whatever text I want. But there are certain units and standards where, like the RI text, reading informational text. They want us to go back and look at what they consider U.S. seminal documents, right? So your preamble to your Constitution,
Mhm.
looking at the Bill of Rights, the Gettysburg Address, because it's hard enough to grapple with more modern text. They look at that and they're put, bless their souls, their little eyes just be like, and I'm like, well, what do we think his purpose was? And they just sit there. Okay, that's okay. I have cold calling cards. Whose turn is it going to be? And you can see him looking like, don't pull mine, don't pull mine. And then you say, so and so. And they look shocked. I was like, why are you looking shocked? You know you have a card in here with your name on it. Why are you looking surprised? And then they look and they know the one thing I can't stand. They say, I don't know. I said, I don't know is apathetic. You don't care. You're allowed to ask a clarifying question. You're allowed to say, I think it's this, but I'm not sure. You can be wrong, but you're not allowed to say, I don't know. So now they'll be like, I'm trying not to say it. Don't say it. Just give me an answer. You can be wrong. Just give me an answer. I'm trying not to say it. I don't want to say it. So they
Did,
don't
did,
want, so they have enough respect for me that they won't say the one thing I hate. I don't know.
did you
But
use that same method with your children? Like, I don't know is not an answer.
no, they didn't say that. My kids are nerdy just like me.
I was about to
So
ask that. Are they
they
all
are
academic
nerdy.
just like you?
Oh, they are indeed. They are. My oldest received the English Honors Award when he was in high school. And my daughter was one of the first students from our campus because they graduated where I teach now. So
Okay.
my
Okay.
colleagues all know they knew me as their mom before they knew me as a colleague. I
Mm.
came to teach at this school when my daughter was in her 10th grade year, but both of my boys had already graduated. And so they really have seen my students as a seeing my children as their students, and then they've
Mhm.
also seen them through my eyes as their mom, and they've always excelled. My daughter took, I can't even tell you how many AP classes, and she took the AP test. She left with 36 AP credits from high school going into college. My son just breezed through getting his BS in kinesiology, his master's in kinesiology. Yeah, they're
That's
brainiacs just like their mom.
man, that is awesome. That is that again, they follow the example and
Yeah,
they follow the
yeah.
standard. They
Mhm.
it's and that's crazy that all three of your kids are they're all acting like you normally don't see three children all going
Mhm.
down the same path. One of them go rogue. You know what?
Well,
One of them,
thank God for his provisions. He said when he's old, he won't depart from it. If he would, he'll come back. Okay.
come on, that's awesome. Like I,
Yeah.
you're the first person that I talked to ever where all three of their kids are they all kind of follow suit.
Mhm. They
I don't know
did. My
anybody,
oldest
none of
didn't
my
go to
friends or nothing.
my oldest didn't go to college, but he's working and he's happy and he's successful. My son and my daughter did go to college and finish, but they're all doing very well. And my children have loved to read from, they've just always loved it. My daughter, we always watched the Twilight movies together because when she was, oh my god, I think she was elementary when the very first Twilight movie was coming out. But I was like, well, we got to read the book before we can go see the movie. That book is this thick. And she was in 5th grade and she read it. And so that was our thing. We read those books together and we went. I would let my children, I'd take them to the midnight showing and we'd all miss school the next day. So yeah, so my daughter was reading books this thick from 5th grade.
I love that. I've been we tried to get our son to be a reader.
Yeah.
Even now, I still gotta work deals with him, and my deals are you got to read books, and he's 19. I'm like, I got his
Well,
car
maybe he just
fixed.
hasn't found something that he's interested in. What is he interested in terms, is he interested in sports? Is he interested in cinema? What's he interested in?
He's a kid that has he's is broad. Like he is good at everything he does.
I love it.
And like right now he has a photography business and he's doing pretty well. He just won this major award in this area. He's probably one of the top students at his college right now. They love him. He's becoming a reader because he owes me some things.
I love it.
So my whole thing was when he was younger, we'll make deals. I don't want you to pay me back. Your deal goes into reading these books. And so I had to call him on the carpet about a month ago. And was like, hey man, we made a deal, and I ordered you these 3 books, and you hadn't fulfilled your end of the deal. So just look me in my face and tell me that you're not going to be a man of your word, and tell me that you're not
Ooh.
going to read these books. And I'm like, I'll rather for you to tell me that than have me hanging expecting you to
Mhm.
read these books.
Mhm.
And that's what men do. And so we kind of had that thing, and he's coming around. He's starting to impress me. Like he's on this delay from the time that he turns the age, so it's like a 6 month delay.
Mhm.
So when he turned 19 in September, about February is when he starts to function
Okay.
at the next age.
You
Um,
know, I
so
did barters with my children too, not necessarily because I felt like I had to, but
mhm,
I know that academics is important, and I
for
wanted
sure.
them to experience success. And I knew that FAFSA and Cal Grant was going to be dependent upon your grades. And mama ain't got a whole lot of money, so we need to get them we need to get that free money for school. So I used to pay my children for their grades. They got $10 for an A, $5 for a B, and I don't give you nothing for C's. C's are average.
Right.
And I didn't
Oh
give
yeah.
birth to average, so I
Well,
don't know what that
come
is.
on.
So every time they got their report card, they and I would pony up $40, and my daughter loved it because she got all A's. So $60.
Oh, so she was
Here you
eating.
go. Mhm. Sure
That's
did.
all right. So your baby is 25. You have 2 older
Mhm.
sons.
Mhm.
You are working in education. Are you dating or in these open to date streets?
I am open to date. I do date when I'm asked out, but finding a person that I click with is very, very difficult. I It would take someone who is just like, just be you, and all of your fabulousness, just be you. I need to be intellectually challenged. So me finishing one goal, I need something else to do. I've never been a person who just wants to come home and sit down and watch TV. I need to do something constructive. So after finishing my PhD, I wrote a book. Now I'm putting it on audio so it can be an audible book. And in the process, I was like, well, I've done all this research for my PhD. I know that there are teachers who want to hear about this research, but they don't have the time to really, to go look for it and then sit down and read it. I said, I'm going to make a podcast, which I actually really just started a podcast too. It's called
Okay.
Drive Through Lit Review. And so I went back to my dissertation, and I'm pulling one article at a time. So I'm given the title of the article, the abstract, and the key ideas from that peer review research that I did. And then I'm telling you where I found it. So it's really a source for educators who just want to be in the know, but don't have the time to go do the research. And so I'm always keeping myself busy in a positive and constructive way. So I would need a person who's okay with me being that way. I need That's me. I'm a nerd
That-
to the core, and I that would be important to me. And
and
someone
he's
who
out there.
could. Yeah, he is. My husband is looking for me. I believe
He
that.
is. He is looking
100%.
for
He
you.
is looking for me. He's like, I know
He
she's spoiled.
is.
I know she's spoiled. I know she's spoiled. But she worked
And
hard
I
to
can
get
rock
everything
with
that she
that. That's what
wants.
he's saying.
Right?
I
He
I
said,
can
but
rock
she
with
worked
that.
hard to get everything she wants. So who am I to complain?
So you wrote a book on credit recovery, right?
Yes. So, yes, the book is called Credit Recovery Through Demonstration of Mastery. And it's a credit recovery program oh, look, you put it up there. How cute. So, it's for high schoolers who need to recover credits in order to graduate. The traditional means of students recovering credit means repeating the course face to face, which now makes the teachers have larger class sizes, or
Mhm.
they're taking it online through some platform, Apex, Edgenuity. But we found that a lot of students are cheating when they're doing that through online. So I found a way to marry two different concepts that we were already working with on our campus. We had
Mhm.
already done grade level alignment for our English department. What do students need to know by the end of ninth grade to be successful in 10th grade? And so on and so forth. So I said, well, what if we could just come up with those mastery based tasks? So a student can say, while I didn't pass ninth grade English when I was there, I have now gained those skills through 10th grade
Mhm.
and 11th grade. Can I just come back and be assessed on those ninth grade skills because I've mastered them now? And it's been very successful. It's in its third year of implementation at my school site, and it's been really good.
Well, that's amazing. What I'm gonna do is I work with a lot. I work heavily with a lot of the school systems in my area, and I have access to principals and superintendents
Mm.
and things like that. So I'm gonna order it just so I can have
Oh,
it
thank
and
you.
and support what you're doing. But I also want to be able to get it into the hands of some of my administrators and see where it goes.
Thank you. That'd
Yeah,
be great because
we
it's
are all kind of, I think that um, one of the things about this community or TikTok community is I met some really cool people, and I live in the streets. I work in the community. I'm a community person. I ran a mentorship program that taught life skills to middle schoolers and high schoolers for the last 6 years, and
nice.
I was in 15 schools in this area, 700 kids. So um,
Nice.
I have the access to the people that can say, oh, hey, we can take a look at this and probably get some things implemented. But I'll definitely do that for you. So what else? You said you're working on a podcast. So you're working on your podcast, you
Mhm.
working on the audio book, you are uh
Oh, I'm presenting my research from my dissertation at ERA coming up in Denver, Colorado, the end of April. So my dissertation was called The Impact of Mirror Books on Sophomore Students' Attitude Towards Reading. So I submitted it for the option to present it, and I was one. They received over 11,000 entries, and I was one of the entries that they chose.
that's because you doing big things.
Yes. So I'm
you know
doing that.
so God
God is
will
good.
he will make a way. You got to have something in the earth for him to move through. Not, you don't have to. It's easier. Not saying that they
Mhm,
couldn't have found you just by
mhm,
finding you, but
mhm,
it's always easier to have that base and that foundation in God, that when He moves, you move and
mhm.
things like that. So you got so
Yes.
so so you're doctor. You got the doctor rolling on. How did that make you feel when you crossed the stage and they put your thing on and flipped it over in the back and you walked out in your hood and your hat, and how did that make you feel?
Well, I haven't actually gone to my graduation yet. I finished my PhD in July, so it was too late to finish to graduate for to walk the stage in 2024, and so
Okay.
I would be eligible to participate in this one. And honestly, I'm not going. I'm I'm
You
gonna buy. Okay, hold. Hear
you
me
gotta
out.
go.
Hear me out. Hear me out. I did my PhD all online. I had a
Uh-huh.
lot in the last year, I had a lot of collaboration with my dissertation chair and my committee member. Those are the only people I really know. So instead of spending money to get on a plane, go all the way there, I'm just going to throw myself a big old party here. Now I'm buying all my regalia, and then I'm
Uh-huh.
just going to float around in my regalia and have a nice fancy dinner with my friends and my family.
I dig it. I
I
dig it
am, because
100%.
it's more important for me to celebrate with the people who really supported me through this journey. My children, I mean, they were some of my biggest fans during this journey. And then not only that, my principal, every time I got some crazy, I mean, the credit recovery program, I went and said, "Hey, I have this idea." They gave me the power. They were like, "Sure, go ahead, as long as your whole department is on board." Yes. And whenever my principal, in terms, I was like, "Well, is it okay if I do my research?" He's like, "Absolutely, yeah." These people put me in a position where I could just have smooth sailing in this process. So it's more important for me to celebrate with them.
That is amazing. I get it. My homeboy just got his doctorate. Well, it's
Nice,
going on 2 years, and so he did
nice,
his all online as well. And
nice.
I think he went to I think the University of Phoenix or Liberty. I think he got his
I went to
doctorate through Liberty.
Liberty.
Yeah,
I
he
did
went through.
Liberty.
He did Liberty. He went
Yes.
through. He won their scholarship. They had a
Nice.
like a $50,000 scholarship that he just wrote a paper and
Wow.
ended up getting a scholarship. And so they covered his whole doctorate. So he ain't spent one penny
Wow.
to for that doctorate.
Oh, that's
And so they
beautiful. That's a
graduated.
blessing.
They graduated last year in San Diego. I mean, 2 years ago it was in San Diego at
Wow.
the Padre Stadium. We went to the San Diego Padre Stadium,
Nice.
um, and so I'm gonna be in California because I graduate in July,
All right.
and I'm telling you, it is. I just
I love
I'm
it.
gonna
Now,
walk
what is
across
your
there.
degree in?
So it's going to be a master's in ministry. I'm doing a dual degree. So it's going to be a master's in ministry and then a doctorate in ministry with a concentration in organizational leadership.
Oh, that is beautiful. That's right in the field that you're already working.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yes.
and so yes, I'm super excited
I
about
can't
that.
wait to
And
call you Dr. Ball.
uh-oh,
Hey, Dr. Ball gonna
hey,
be balling out.
you know what? I got my stuff too, though. So right, I got the regalia thing and
I
all
love
of that other
it.
stuff, and had my son to do some pictures, and it just broke me down in tears once I put it
Oh,
on because I'm an inner city kid from the hood,
mm,
and that beat all the odds and all the statistics and
mm.
stuff. But this show ain't about me. This is about you.
That's
So we
beautiful. That is
so
so
so yeah,
beautiful.
so look, so you got your book, you got your podcast,
Mhm.
you got what else you working on? What else you got? What other plates are you spinning? Because I know
Yes. I have one of my colleagues and friends, Dr. Jason Moore. He and I are going to be partnering on a research coming up. We're going to start over the summer. We want to study whether there is a correlation between Lexile levels and attitude towards reading. My dissertation chair, Dr. Went, might join us too. I haven't yet heard back from her. And so we can naturally assume, right, that, well, maybe if students have a poor attitude towards reading, they probably don't read that well. But until we've actually measured it statistically, that's just an assumption on our part. And maybe
Mhm.
that might allow us a little more of a glimpse of what we're talking about in terms of literacy, besides just saying our students are not reading on grade level. There's a lot of intervention programs for elementary, but hardly anything for secondary, which is middle and high school. So we
Yeah,
need to really start to pull it apart, dissect it, and see what's going on if we want to do something about it.
yes, yeah. I mean, where I'm at, I'm in Indiana, and the school systems here don't really care about
Mm.
the students. As I mean, they got rid of all the empowering programs and
Mm.
things that was helping them become better humans, and just went really locked in on test scores. But if they have a hard problem interpreting the words, it's very
Exactly.
hard. So I think that work is amazing, and once y'all get it going, it's going to catch fire because it's needed.
Mhm.
It's
It
not a
is.
school. It's not a school that I've been in that will reject something like that.
Mhm.
So that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So look,
Yes.
we go. Y'all can go catch her. This is her link tree. We go. Pull that up. Get her on her link tree. Make sure y'all go to her website. It's right here, y'all. I need y'all to go check her out. You might not be able to physically get in contact with her. You might not physically, but then again, you might be able to. But I know how life is. But if you can get in contact with her, if you can get her book and her materials and all engage in her content and all the stuff that you're doing, it's like she's mentoring you directly. So definitely, definitely, definitely go check out her website. Go check out her book. Follow her on TikTok, cause she out in these TikTok streets doing it big. She out in these TikTok streets doing it big. She out here doing great things. And this is what I can say in our short encounter that we've engaged. I actually been following you for about 2 years, and I just love your personality. I love
Thank
your
you.
approach, your softness. You do have that teacher vibe going on, the old school teacher that like when we first got on, she said, "How are you today, Mr. C. Maurice Ball?" And I felt like I was in first grade. I'm just sitting here swinging my feet in my stool, like, I'm great. Can I go get you an apple? I mean, like she is she has an amazing, amazing spirit and amazing
Thank
personality.
you. Thank
And
you.
she's also a sneakerhead. So you see
Oh,
Doc out in these streets, she gonna be high stepping in some retros because now she's in the game and she
in
got to
the
be careful.
game.
You can't
And
just leave
matching
the
Starbucks
Jordan
cup.
game. Oh, and her
And
cups. Oh
matching
yeah. So
a
so
match.
so what she does, I think this is dope, y'all. She matches her J's with her outfit, but then she has a matching cup to go along with it. So it's a whole ensemble. And it
Mhm.
and the cup is just as fly as she be. So y'all look, she is amazing. I do have one last question for you before we go.
Mm.
What is something that you didn't pay attention to when you were younger that you had to learn the hard way growing up or as
Budgeting,
you got older?
finances and budgeting. My mother didn't have those conversations with me about budgeting and financing that I had with my children. So that was something that it took me a while to get a handle on. So yeah. So parents, talk to your children about financial literacy.
Financial literacy is very, very, very important.
It is.
It is. I'm trying to tell my son that now. I was like, son, I don't. When you leave out of here and you go away to school next year, I am not worried about any of the college stuff you're gonna do. You're gonna make good choice. That stuff is gonna happen. You're gonna do college stuff. My
Mm,
thing is you need to get a handle on your finances. And my wife is an accountant by degree.
I love it.
And and I'm sitting here saying, bruh, you that's my only concern for you
Yeah.
is the finances. So financial literacy. Is there
Yes.
anything else you want to say to the people before we
Um, No, oh yeah. Follow me on TikTok. We doing homestead 101. I am teaching you about keeping chickens. I'm teaching you about gardening. We're gonna get to our renewable energy, and then we'll be talking about canning. We're gonna talk about crafting and sewing. We're gonna be talking about it all.
a full homemade class. And if you go to her link
Yeah.
tree, she has a link in the link about the homestead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it says Homestead 101 on
Mm-hmm.
her link tree, so y'all can tap into that. And so, hey, this has been an amazing conversation. Y'all know how we do. I love you like a play cousin. I'm
Thank you
out.
so much.
Peace.
Thank you so much.